Okay, so let's get started. So, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Rafi Shulman, and I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors. It's a pleasure to have you here. We love hosting these webinars, and we're looking forward to answering your questions, to giving you information, to giving you advice. We have a wonderful panel, and I'll introduce them in a moment. And each one of them has a lot of wisdom to share, and we'll be happy to answer the questions that we'll get. We have over 150 people from around the world, from Israel and around the world. And I think it's amazing to see that people have different plans and different goals and different concerns. Some people are looking to buy a home or make Aliyah in the near future. Other people are just thinking about it. Maybe it's just in the back of their mind and something that they want to explore and look into. All of that is fine, and we're happy that you're here. We want to give you some food for thought. We want to give you some practical advice, and at the end of the day, really help you realize your goals of making Aliyah and buying a home in Israel. Before I introduce the panel, just a few quick things. We will be recording it, so if you've come late or if you have to leave early, don't worry about it. We're going to send out an email within a day or two with a recording with a link to the recording so you can watch it at your own convenience. Also, please feel free to share it if there's anybody else that you know who's thinking about buying a home in Israel. They could be living in Israel already and they just want to buy their first home or they want to buy their second home, or if they're looking to make Aliyah, we want to share this with as many people as possible. So just forward on the email, and we're happy to talk to people. We also will be including our contact information at the end. And we do that because we recognize that we can't get to everybody's questions and we can't get to the depth of the details sometimes that people are looking for. So we want to encourage you to reach out to us, whether it's to myself and my colleagues at Olim Advisor, the other real estate professionals that we have here on the panel, or the people who have made Aliyah who would gladly talk to you, answer your questions, and share some of their insights. So please don't be bashful, don't hesitate, reach out to us. Let's schedule some time to talk, and I think you'll find that very, very productive. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a wonderful panel of people as speakers. So let me start off by introducing my partner and my sister, Lara Itzhaki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such a great evening. We're excited to have the first of these Q&A open-ended webinars with all of your questions that we can hopefully answer for you. Um, as Rafi said, we are partners. We started this company 8 years ago. I am a social worker, so I love what I do, helping people to make Aliyah, to make their dreams come true. Work with this team to help you with all of your needs and all of your questions and be your support and your guide. And we're here, whatever questions you have, whether it's about Aliyah, whether it's about real estate, reach out to us at whatever stage you are, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to Rabbi Bloom, I forgot to mention that you should go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A box. We want to get to as many live questions as possible. We also have a lot of questions that people have submitted. So as we go through the Q&A session over the next hour, feel free to type them into the Q&A box and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Rabbi Paul Bloom, it's over to you.
Sure. So nice to be here. Welcome, everyone. I made Aliyah about a little over 4 years ago. And before that, I was a CTO of IBM Research. And before that, I was an executive director at Bell Communications Research and Bell Laboratories. I recently started an organization called the Israel Inspiration Initiative. And the focus of this organization is to help people within communities to plan for Aliyah. Everyone is at a different stage of Aliyah. And a lot of people always ask the question, well, how do I start this planning process? And that's our objective. Our objective is to kind of help you get started, regardless of where you are in the Aliyah planning process. We've done things in 4 cities so far, in Highland Park, Edison, in West Hempstead, New York, in the Upper West Side, and in Fair Lawn. And if there are people on this call who are interested to have something like this in their community with their rabbis, and please let me know, and Rafi will be providing information as far as where we can contact me.
Great, thank you so much. Natan, over to you.
All right, Natana, first of all, great to be here. Always just a blast. My name is Natan. I made Aliyah 12, 13 years ago, depending how you count it. I help everything that has to do with mortgages, financing, everything from the very initial tentative budget call of how do we plan for the right budget, what are the numbers that we should be looking at and kind of walking that through, and all the way until the money actually transfers and you're on the back half of your real estate deal. That is what I do. Happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Natan. Avram, over to you.
Shalom, Rafi. Shalom, everyone. My name is Avram Levinsky. I have a law firm. I'm an attorney. I'm dealing with overseas clients that buying properties, buying real estate in Israel. And this is what we do. We expert in that. This is what we do. And we will be happy to assist to any of you with your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Avram. Eileen, over to you. You're mute.
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Eileen, and I made Aliyah back in January with the help of Olim advisors. And I live in Zichron Yaakov, and what else can I say? I'm going to share my experience as needed here. So I'm happy.
Great.
Thank
you so
you
much,
for
Eileen.
joining us.
Thanks.
Karen and Arby, it's up to you guys.
Karen Habenstock and Artie Jacobowitz. We made Aliyah 18 months ago from Tampa, Florida. We initially moved to Haifa and rented until our apartment in Akziv was ready. We moved to our apartment about 4.5 months ago, and
loving the view of the Mediterranean.
Wonderful. Thank you. Harold, your turn.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Harold Goldberg from Toronto. My wife Carol and I made Aliyah 8 months ago, last November, and with lots of help from Olim advisors as well. And happy to answer everyone's questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Naomi, you're next.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I made Aliyah 4 years ago from Chicago. I was a client of Olim Advisors, and now I'm very happily working for them. And I'm very excited to be here and to answer whatever questions I can.
Thank you, Naomi. And Ilana, sorry about that. I left you off the list, but last but not least, Ilana Gardner.
No worries. Hi, I'm Alana. I'm one of the advisors at Olim Advisors, and I made Aliyah 10.5 years ago. I live in Ramat Shemesh and really enjoy working with Olim Advisors and helping everyone. Happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Ilana. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing. Just want to bring up some questions here. So Lara, there's a question here about benefits for Israelis. It says whether the benefits for Aliyah and returning citizens can be used simultaneously for a husband and for a wife. Where the husband is Israeli, or dual citizenship, and the wife is American. What are the thoughts on just the benefits and how that works?
So it's an interesting question. I'll be happy to speak to them directly. We have had many clients coming to Israel that they've had one of the parents is already Israeli and one is making Aliyah. So that definitely can be done. It's just a question of what exactly that means, what the status is. So reach out to me directly and we can go over things and just figure things out with your rights exactly.
Okay, great. Then there's a question about somebody who can't afford to live in central of Israel. Natan, maybe you can talk a little bit about the budget and how it when it comes to the mortgage and how you help people figure out where they can afford to live and where they can't.
Definitely. Okay, so I think maybe the best way to start is oftentimes people will think, okay, let's go shop for a home, and we'll figure out our budget along the way. And I think an easier way to think about it is first, let's figure out what the budget is, and whatever that number is, we can match the home to the budget. And very often, what I'll do in that initial phone call is we'll figure out what the budget is, and I'll dive into that in just a second. It's a pretty simple, down payment plus maximum mortgage, which I'll get to in a second. And then once we know what the budget is, then we work really closely as a company with Olim advisors. They are incredible. I don't think that they give themselves enough credit for knowing all of Israel, not just your classic, Central Israel, RBS. No shade, nothing against those communities, but some communities are cheaper and they're really good at knowing where to place you, personality, lifestyle, hashkafa, like the whole 9 yards. So step one is to build a budget, and then step two is to find out which communities are viable given the budget. As opposed to shopping, getting exhausted, finding a house you really like, and then finding out it's on your budget anyways. Budgets essentially are the down payment, right? Generally, clients, you guys know what that looks like. We'll ask a few questions. Is it liquid? Is it tied up? Is it before taxes? Is it in Israel? Is it not in Israel? So on and so forth. But that's the down payment. And then you add to that what your maximum mortgage is going to be. And what informs your maximum mortgage more than anything is your monthly payment. So it's either what your income can support, right? What we're able to approve vis-a-vis banks or other lenders. Or sometimes you'll be able to afford a really, really high monthly payment, but you don't actually want to pay that much each month. That's a bit too much on your monthly budget. And so we'll extrapolate from whatever you feel comfortable and or are able to pay for your monthly budget. We'll extrapolate from that what your maximum mortgage is. Down payment, maximum mortgage, take off some closing costs, and that's really what your budget looks like.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Then there's a question here about somebody who's coming and making Aliyah in about a week or so, and he's asking for contacts to realtors in different neighborhoods. And we can definitely do that. We'll send you information, and we have an amazing network of professionals. I would encourage people in general, if you're looking to rent, to start the search process about 2 months before. If you started too early, then things will very often rent. But if you're thinking, for example, in coming in the summer, then start around Pesach time, around May time. We're happy to introduce you to people who are realtors who can help you find rentals, can find properties to buy. Just keep in mind that sometimes it does take some time, especially rentals. A lot of the popular communities, there's not a lot of inventory, and so it's better to start a little earlier, and then you can always rule things out. So if you do need the contacts to a realtor, let us know, and we will gladly introduce you to them. There's a question here, Lara, about just documents about making Aliyah, and I usually tell people that they need to reach out to Nefesh B'Nefesh if they're coming from North America. How would you respond to people if they have questions about their Aliyah documentation?
Right. So I saw this question. I didn't really exactly understand it. But basically, there's a whole list of documents needed to make Aliyah. Birth certificates, if you're married, then a marriage certificate, a letter from a rabbi proving you're Jewish, then you have to have the FBI background check, which needs to be valid. They're valid for 6 months. There is an exact list of what's needed, but that's the core documents that everyone has to give in. I wasn't sure with that questioning. I think she's asking something different, but again, you can reach out to me privately and I can help you with that.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm just going out to some questions that people have sent us. So this is a question for Harold and Eileen. Some people are asking about communities for people who are 55 plus, so different cities, different areas. What would you recommend?
Well,
Are you saying that I'm old?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No, I said, are you saying that I'm old?
No, not at all.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Well, I'm really happy in Zichron Yaakov, and I think I'm 62, and I would say that when I go to some of the 55 and older, I feel like everybody's a lot older than me, but I've managed to just by involving in other things, finding people more in my age, up, down some years. But there's a great Anglo community here, and I've managed to make good friends so far and hope to meet even more people. I love Zichron Yaakov. So.
And you find there's a lot of
Yeah.
cultural and things to do, Eileen? There's a lot of different options?
Yeah, I would say that I'm still discovering a lot of that. And I know it's not like living in Tel Aviv, but I don't want to live in a place like Tel Aviv. But yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, just to me, having more like one-on-one or small group things is more important. And so I'm really enjoying that. But there's definitely options for going out and hearing music or going to plays or events. Yeah, for sure.
So in answer to your question, Rafi, so when Carol and I were looking, we wanted to look at a place where we had a community that was similar, I guess, to Toronto. So Jerusalem's the big city, transit, lots of places to walk, like within walking distance. So we don't even have a car. We walk everywhere. And then in terms of the community, we wanted to have a place where we could get involved in the community. And I can tell you that from the first week that we were here, we were already getting invitations for Shabbos and whatever, and we've just made an amazing connection with a lot of people here in that 55 plus community. It's funny because I joined the synagogue and I said we brought down the average age, but there's people older, there's people younger, and because we're in Jerusalem and we're in the Sheri Chesed Rehavia area, there's just so many options, and people have been fantastic. So everyone likes to help out new Olim. That's there's no problem
Wonderful.
integrating at all.
Wonderful. Okay, Avram, there's a question here just about the property taxes. So if you can just briefly, without getting into too much detail, because I know it's a hefty topic, but just can you explain the difference between the property taxes, the purchase tax for people who are making Aliyah, people who are foreign buyers versus people who are living in Israel?
Yeah, so thanks, Rafi. It's actually a topic that we generally speaking about in webinars for like 20 minutes. So we try to do this like in 1 minute for very general information. So if you are buying a property and you're living in Israel, you're going to have a very good purchase tax to pay. That means that there are like steps. It's not like I cannot give the exact number because, for example, from 0 until 2,100,000 shekel, you pay no tax. From 2,100,000 till 2,500,000, I'm just giving an example, you pay 3.5% tax, etc. So there are like steps when you live in Israel, or when you do Aliyah also, let's say it's very good taxation. When you live abroad, you pay 8%. So these are the two main issues. And if I want to tell you only one thing, each of you that's buying property and going to do Aliyah can be eligible to very good purchase tax. You just need to speak with us about the circumstances, when to do Aliyah, etc.
Okay, thank you. For Naomi and for Ilana, can you talk about advice for people who made Aliyah with kids, or people that you know that have made Aliyah with kids? Like, are there, I know there's probably a lot of tips you can share with people, but if there's one or two things that come to in mind from your experience or experience of other people who have made Aliyah, what would you tell somebody if they were making Aliyah with young kids?
Okay, my tips are always to try, if you're coming before the school year starts, to try and get your kids to meet a couple other kids who will be in their class before the school year starts so that they see a familiar face on the first day. That's what I did for my kids, and it was really helpful. Another thing that I think is great for families with kids is to sign them up for chugim. Chugim are extracurricular activities. So it could be anything from sports to dance, ballet, like chess, robotics, whatever your kid is into, just sign them up for a chug, because it's a way for them to have fun and be immersed in the language without it being school related, and have another social outlet. So chugim. And one more tip that I like to tell people is most neighborhoods have some type of Tnuat Noar, which is a youth group. So sometimes it's Bnei Akiva, sometimes it's Ezra, sometimes it's Ariel. There are different ones. But it's a very popular thing in Israel, definitely in the neighborhood I live in. And it's also a great opportunity for your kids to just be involved in the community, in the neighborhood, again, be immersed in the language without it being school related. And it's a lot of fun. They're usually in it for years. And then it's really exciting when they get to become madrichim. So those are my tips for families with kids.
Great. Lana, what's your advice?
I guess I'll add in on the younger, like if you're coming with kids, maybe I'll speak about the younger age since yours was more towards a little older. I would say a couple of things. Number one, if possible, to kind of like what Naomi said, to aim to be here before the school year starts. I think it's very difficult coming in the middle of the school year. A lot of people tend to make Aliyah in the summer, but to try to aim to do that and to also understand that signing up for ganim and schools in advance can sometimes be complicated from afar. So I've found it's really great to reach out to families that you know are already living in the area, or if you can find someone to connect you to kids that will already be sending to families sending to those ganim or whatever, and they can help sometimes with those extra connections as well. Sometimes we can to just like help a little bit know that you're set up when you come, because sometimes it's complicated registering in advance. And I would say also, like, I think people are nervous coming with young kids. I find Dafka with the younger kids, the transition's really smooth. I've seen so many people, thank God, within a year, they're they're integrated mostly. So just to know that it's good. It works out.
Okay, great. Lara, can you talk a little bit about the Kupat Cholim? There was a couple of questions about healthcare and how it works here.
Definitely. So the country has 4 national healthcare coupots. Basically, we explain to people that they should pick one of the 4 depending on where they're living, because each area has 1 or 2 that are stronger, meaning there's more doctors. You want to make sure that there are doctors available that speak English. Within the coupots, they do offer very similar things, and then there's the basic healthcare, and then there's a supplemental. Each one of the 4 has also the supplemental. The supplemental, what it means is you get extra services such as if you want a second opinion or dental care or orthodontist. So a lot of times they say it's good to get supplemental if you have children or if you're a woman that's having children at those ages, you're of those at that age, or older people, it makes sense to have supplemental. We can send out to anyone that wants, we can send out an email that explains the 4 different coupons and also the price range of per, like, it changes by the age, like 0 to 18 is one price, and then 19 to 25, and so on, it changes. So if anyone wants specifics about that, we can definitely send that out. And then there's the basket of medicine that's covered. All those medicines is under all 4 kupot is all the same. But there are certain things that one kupot might be better than the other. So it's just as important to find out what is the popular kupot in the area that you're looking for, and we can definitely help you with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's a question here about buying a home in Israel before you make Aliyah. So, Paul, I know that this is something that you did way in advance. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process and why you went ahead and bought, and how you decided where you want to buy, if you didn't know where you're going to be moving to and when you're going to be moving?
Sure. So I started my planning process about 25 years ago. And I actually helped a community in Highland Park, Edison, where we eventually got about 70 people to buy homes in Eretz Israel. And the first thing that we really did is we kind of talked about the different communities, and we just had to decide which community was appropriate for each person. And everyone had different needs and different interests. The next step we did after we decided the communities, we actually encouraged people to actually go to the communities and spend some time there. Rent a house in that community for a few months if you can, or if you're going on vacation, you only have 2 or 3 weeks. Try to spend time in the community so you can get a sense of what that community is really all about. I also live in Shari Chesed in Rehavia, and I found that my transition was so simple only because I've kind of been going back and forth in that community for over 20 years, as I have a couple of kids here and I have a couple of kids in the United States. So it made the transition very, 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 very easy for me. And it's also a function of what type of budget you have. As Avram mentioned a little bit earlier, if you have only a budget of a few $100,000, you're not going to look in Central Yerushalayim for a home. So I think that's part of the overall decision process, kind of where you want to live, what's actually in your budget, what your family situation is. Obviously, if you have younger kids, you'll be looking at different neighborhoods than you would if you're just a retiree like myself. So I think the key part of all this is start the planning process. Ask questions. Ask questions while you're visiting the community. Ask questions for people within Olim advisors. They can be very helpful to help you make that decision of where and when to actually purchase, a home for yourself in Israel.
Great, thank you. And Karen and Artie, this also applies to you because you also bought a home in Achziv before you made Aliyah. Can you talk about the thought process, why you decided, well, first of all, how you found your area and why you decided to move forward and buy something when you were still living in the States? Because a lot of people feel that that's a much harder process, but you guys did it successfully, and as you said, you're living in a beautiful apartment with a beautiful view. Can you talk a little bit about that decision-making process for you?
We knew we were coming, so that was the probably the hardest part, was figuring out whether we were coming or not. Once we made that decision, we took a pilot trip. We were here for about 3.5 weeks, rented a car, drove up and down the country, and decided we wanted a quiet neighborhood with a view. Buying the apartment, Natan and Avraham They made that real easy for us. We also had a lot of support from Olim advisors, from our advisor and the real estate people that they had recommended to us. We checked out several cities. Each had its own realtor, and they showed us around and were amazingly helpful. So that's kind of where we came from. We took the time. I'm not sure everybody can do that, but we took the time and came and searched until we found something that we really liked.
Great. Thank you so much. There's a couple questions about the closing costs. And so as we mentioned beforehand, there's the purchase tax, depending on whether or not you're in Israel or not. Then there's the realtor fee, which is typically 2% plus VAT. And then there's a lawyer's fee and a mortgage fee. And so Natan and Avram, can you just speak for a moment about your fees and what you typically charge?
You want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. So typically, we lawyers, we charge around 1% plus VAT. This naturally depending in the situation, sometimes we can do a bit less, sometimes we have to do a bit more, but we're trying to do something around that price, something like that. That's the situation.
Okay.
The mortgage fee, there are two classical ways of looking at it. There are mortgage brokers in Israel. They're among the minority who also charge based on a percentage, 1% of the amount of money you're taking as a mortgage, plus VAT, value added tax. The way that I prefer, as well as the majority of mortgage brokers, is to charge based on the case. So generally what I find is that it comes to around where the lawyer is at, a bit cheaper. But it's not something that's based on the amount of mortgage money that you're taking, but rather on how complicated the situation is, where's the money coming from, any hiccups along the way that we have to smooth over. So that's what our fees generally based off of.
Thank you. There's a couple questions here about the realtor's fees, and yes, it is a lot of money, but I think it's absolutely worth it for a number of reasons. First of all, the real estate market in Israel is fragmented. There's no central listing like you have, for example, in the States. We have MLS or Zillow, which means if you want to get access to a lot of properties in different cities, you need to work with people who have the connections, who know what's available. So that's the first reason that I do recommend that people work with realtors. Good realtors also know their areas, they know the neighborhoods, they know developments, they know what's coming up, where things are going. And so I think in the long run, it definitely pays off. They can also help negotiating. You could save the 2% by working with a good lawyer who, sorry, a good realtor who can help you negotiate and reduce the price by 2%. So realtors in Israel are no different than realtors anywhere else. In fact, I think realtors in Israel are more necessary because of the fact that there's no central listing. But in my experience, and we have good realtors, right? And that's the key is you have to make sure that you're working with a realtor who's not just looking to get paid, but really wants to help you find the property that meets your needs and meets your budget. And if you work with the right realtor, they will help you and they will really, help you avoid mistakes that can be much more costly. There's a question here, Lara, about pilot trips. Can you briefly explain what a pilot trip is and whether or not you think people should come on a pilot trip?
Absolutely. So a pilot trip is a period of time where people come to Israel before making Aliyah. It could be for a few days, it could be for a week or 2 weeks to really look around and to see different neighborhoods. If they're coming with children, then they would probably go and see different schools. They would go around with a realtor. They would speak to different people in the neighborhood and really get a feel for what the neighborhoods are about. Harold, I believe you and Carol came on a pilot trip. Eileen, I think you did also come on a pilot trip. They're so worthwhile, and maybe you can both also just chime in. But I've seen people that were set in one neighborhood and then they came here and they looked at different areas and changed their minds totally. It's just, when we all come and we visit Israel, so you're coming as a tourist, you're coming as a guest of someone, but when you're coming to look to live somewhere, then it's a very, very different you're looking at different things. You're looking to see, like Harold, you said you wanted to be part of a community. You were in a community in Toronto and you wanted something similar to that. You were looking for specific things. I remember Carol at the time was looking for specific things. Eileen, you also, everyone comes with their kind of their list of what they want and what's good for them, their family, whoever they're coming with. And we help to actually plan out these pilot trips. So depending on your needs, depending on what we brainstorm beforehand, hear what people are looking for, uh, think together of what options are for places to look at, try to narrow it down, and then set up appointments for people to come and look and see. Um, Eileen, do you want to talk about the different places that you saw?
Right. So what was interesting is growing up, I was so kibbutz oriented, and here I was going to be moving to a city or a town. And you and Meir really got to know me and had a great sense of what I would like. So you sent me to different places, and I knew in Zichron that I wanted to be here. And on the pilot trip, I actually rented the place that I was going to be moving to 3 months later. So it just really worked out well that I could transact all this while I was on my pilot trip, so that by the time I got off the plane at Aliyah, I had an apartment to go to. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was lucky.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Naomi and Ilana, can you talk about the age of kids and families making Aliyah with the age of kids? In the past, it used to be younger. Now people are coming with older kids. What's your experience? What are your thoughts on the ages of kids and how that might impact their experience?
So when I made Aliyah also with my two older sisters. So their kids were older. My oldest nephew, I think, was going into 10th grade at the time. I think he was 15, almost 16. And I would say, like, I mean, just pure success for all of them. They both moved with a handful of teenagers. My nephew now is in Hesder. He's learning in yeshiva before he goes to the army. And it's definitely important to find out where the kids will have the best support. So I think I mentioned that I was a client of Olim Advisors. My sisters were also clients of Olim Advisors. So we really, really utilized the service to help us decide what's the best community, what's the best school. These are the ages of the kids. This is, you know, their level of Hebrew right now and how much support they'll need and things like that. So it's very helpful just having that guidance before you make Aliyah so that you set yourself up for success. But I will say that I speak to a lot of people now thinking of making Aliyah with teenagers. You definitely have to know your kids, but I don't think that it's automatically a deterrent. I don't think having older kids is a deterrent from making Aliyah. I think you just have to set yourself up for success in the best way possible.
Okay.
I wouldn't
Ilana, what
add
are your
much
thoughts?
more. I would just say that the same thing. I think that's the most important. You really need to know your kid, their strengths and their weaknesses, what they need. And every kid is different. And some, you know, you can know that, like, okay, we really need to give them extra support, but it'll hopefully work. And so that's really the most important. And I think also, you know, knowing, I guess all the factors, balancing the community, like, you know, like also their age is a big difference, you know, let's say 12 versus 15 versus 18. Those are all very different stages. So all very important parts to balance. There was one more thing I was going to say, which I just lost. Okay, let's skip it for now.
I just want to add one thing. When we made Aliyah, our oldest was 10. And at the time, there was almost like this, like silent, you know, everyone said, okay, 10 years old, and that's it. That's like the oldest the kids could be. And I think, I mean, that was 15 years ago. Things have changed. And I also feel like there's so many more, there's so much more support out there today. There's more support with the schools, there's more support with the communities. I think they really are trying more and more to be as helpful as possible to understand when kids are coming when they're older, that they need more. So, you know, there's no longer this like number. I feel like each person, and like Naomi said, or you both said, we really have to know your own kids and ask and check and try to make it as successful as possible.
And I
I'll
have
just
one
add
more
one more
thing.
thing based. Oh, sorry. You could go
You
ahead.
first.
I also know several families who have made Aliyah with kids very all these ages, and the biggest thing that I've seen with the kids that struggled was there are options. Like Lara said, like there are different, like worst case, you know, there are schools that if you need to send your kid in high school in English, you could find it. There are ways to navigate it more than there used to be, even within the struggles, I would say. But it really, like, vast majority, I have a lot of friends also who really at all ages they had successful aliyahs. It's very possible.
Great,
I
thank
was
you.
going to say the thing about options, that there's not just one track or one way to do things or to succeed in Israel or to be happy in Israel. There are definitely options. And just one maybe little cute fluffy thing I'll add is that my experience has been that in my kids' schools, they really view Olim as like these heroes, like literally giborim, for making Aliyah from the comforts of America, and where things were easy and the language was easy and everything. And I think the kids really, I mean, they feel like a sense of pride that they did something really hard, but it pays off, and it pays off pretty quickly also, I'll say. So it's nice. I think a lot of the schools here that have the right support really look at the kids and know that they kind of against their will, or it wasn't their decision, but they've made a huge sacrifice, and they recognize that, which is really helpful. And just making the kids feel like they did something amazing is really important.
Great, thank you. Natan, there's a question here about getting mortgages when you're in your 70s and 80s. Can you talk about a little bit about how that plays out and what options people have?
Yeah, so I saw those two questions. I'm going to preface with generally the banks limit getting a mortgage until age 85. So what that means is that if you're going to, take like a fairly standard 20-ish year mortgage, you have around until 65. That being said, you are able to get a mortgage after 65. It would mean having a shorter duration, meaning you would spread out your mortgage to less years. That's going to impact your monthly payment by basically squeezing everything together into less time. You're going to be causing your monthly payments to go up. And that's your classic option. You have two other options that you can do to kind of sidestep the higher monthly payments. Option number one is to get a pensioner's mortgage, which is a very specific mortgage for people who are retiring. Even if you get a mortgage at 65, by the way, one of the things that you're going to have to show the bank convincingly enough is not just that you're earning income enough so to support the mortgage and make the monthly payments, but that your income is going to stay consistent, because everybody kind of knows that at 65, statistically speaking, you're probably going to be retiring soon. At 70, maybe you're like super hardworking, 75, maybe you have some sort of a professor position and you're able to do it a bit longer. So there is some leeway here. Maybe you have, pension set up, some sort of a portfolio. There is some leeway, but even with your standard mortgage, 20 years up until 65, that does require some explaining, to say the least. The other two options are the pensioner's mortgage, where the assumption is that you're not going to be making the same level of income. And the way that banks structure it is a bit different. Besides for the pensioner's mortgage, you have a reverse mortgage, which is similar. I'm not going to dive too much into it. There are a lot of misconceptions. While it is not Plan A, very often it is discounted when it shouldn't be. And the third option is to sometimes, and every family has their own situation, and it's important to be sensitive and to really take it, with a lot of respect in hand. But sometimes you can have your kids come into the mortgage, or maybe even come into the purchase, depending on what your family goals are. And that's going to help by introducing a borrower who is younger. And a younger borrower is going to therefore have more years to spread out the mortgage. There's going to be less questions about, are they going to stay working, just because statistically speaking, they're probably going to keep working. I'm going to wrap all of that up with really the best thing to do is to just ask, to shoot me a WhatsApp, give a call, ask Rafi, ask myself. And the reason for that is because all three of those options are going to induce some sort of creativity, and it's very hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer. To the extent that I try to do so now, but instead of limiting yourself, just ask.
Thank you so much. For Harold and for Rabbi Bloom, how did you go about deciding what Kupat Cholim and healthcare coverage and doctors you should choose? Is this something that you did before you made Aliyah or once you got here?
Well, what
Well,
we
I had the
did was
advantage of
we,
having. Go ahead. Go ahead.
what we did was we because we had some people who we knew here, friends of ours in different communities, we just asked around and said, who are you using and what's good and what's not so good and whatever. And then we decided based on that. And then we said, okay, we went with Maccabi, which is one of the four. And we chose the upgraded, which is Maccabi Shali. And then we said, we'll give it a try for 6 months, a year, and see how it goes. And so far, it's been very good. So go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so I had a similar experience. I had two kids living here already, so I asked them what they're using, which they use Miyuchedet. I also met someone in my shul in the Young Israel of Rehavia who happened to be a doctor in Miyuchedet, who I became very friendly with. So he kind of also influenced me to use Miyuchedet. And I've been very happy. They have a lot of American doctors. No problem, getting appointments and stuff. I also took an upgrade to Miyuchet, it's called C, where you get some of the extra coverages. So again, asking people, asking friends, and then even going into the doctor's office and having an opportunity to speak to the doctors to give you a feeling of what type of person he is and how you would interact with him.
Great, thank
I
you.
just want to add to that you can have different family members be on different kupot. So if, for example, you have someone in a family that has a very specific need and there's one doctor that you know is in one kupa that you want to have, that you can have one member of the family be on that kupa and the rest be on. So each person can be on their own kupa. And also just to understand, it's a bit of a nuisance, but you can switch from one to the other. There's several times a year where you can switch. So it's not like you're in one kupa and you're stuck for life and that's it. So it's great, Harold and Rabbi Bloom, that you managed to find the information beforehand, and that's so important. I'm just saying, let's say you got here and you found that there was a different doctor and a different kupa, there is the ability to switch over. Again, it's not always so easy, but it's definitely can be done.
Right. And you should also mention that there are private insurances that you can get as well to kind of supplement what you already have with the coupon.
Right.
Right, good point.
Yeah.
There's a question about Olim advisors versus Nefesh B'Nefesh, and people ask us, do I have to choose between the two of you? And it's not the case. In fact, when we first started, we met with Rabbi Fass, who's the director of Nefesh B'Nefesh, and we asked him what they focus on and what additional needs Olim have that they don't focus on. And that's what really led us to start Olim Advisors back in 2016 by creating a very personalized service. And so what we recognize is that some people need some extra hand-holding. Nefesh B'Nefesh does a great job in what they do, but some people need more help. They need more guidance to find communities and schools and figure out the pre-Aliyah part of it. And so that's what we set out to do, is really provide that support and the guidance. And the way that we do it is that we assign an advisor to each one of our clients. So it could be an Aliyah advisor or a real estate advisor. And this person gets to know the person, gets to know the family, and really is with them throughout the journey from the pre-Aliyah stage to bureaucracy, which is when people get here and have to deal with Mishwar Apnim, Mishwar Klita, the bank, and so on and so forth. And then just providing ongoing support, because the reality is that it's a different culture, it's a different way of doing things, and you could speak Hebrew, you could have family here, but sometimes people just need help and they need to know that they have somebody they can turn to, and that's really what we set out to do. And thank God we've really had a lot of success in helping people. And what I tell people, it's not just about making Aliyah. The Aliyah in many ways is the easy part. The harder part is the klita, the adjustment, the acclimation. And a lot of time it takes weeks and months and sometimes longer. And so you just need to come with a positive attitude. You need to be comfortable asking for help. And that's really kind of the area that we feel is having somebody who can accompany you throughout this journey. And we do the same thing with real estate. When people want to buy, whether they're looking to make Aliyah or maybe they're looking for investment, vacation homes, then we want to be able to explain to them how the process works, how the market works, and also introducing to people that we've carefully chosen that they can trust. And so we help people find communities, projects, developments, and then really manage and oversee the process from beginning to end. So the important thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of wonderful people. And I think you'll find that if you turn to people, it will definitely save you time. It will definitely save you aggravation, could save you actually money, and really make the whole experience a lot simpler, a lot more manageable. There's a question here about selling your home in the States or where you're from before you buy. Natan, maybe you can just talk about it. I know it's another deep question. It really depends on scenarios, but can you talk a little bit about how the kind of the pros and the cons of selling property before they buy?
Yeah, so It's a bit of a complicated question to answer because very often there are multiple factors happening at the two different junctions. So, for example, if you're still living in the States and you haven't sold your home, very often that's because you haven't yet made Aliyah. And that also means, generally speaking, that you're going to be getting 50% financing for your mortgage. So it's almost like almost like a double whammy where you have less financing and you have less down payment because you're still holding on to the home in the States. Very often, one of the solutions is actually buying on paper, where you have a down payment to get a foothold in a future apartment, and that kind of solves the timing. And I know that Olim Advisors has done a great job of finding different projects that work, not just in terms of a community, but in terms of the timelines of when you want to make Aliyah. Once you're ready to sell your home and make Aliyah, then a lot of things end up freeing up, right? You have a lot more down payment to make, and you also get, generally speaking, up to 75% financing for your first purchase. And maybe the biggest difference between those two is they can very easily put you in different communities, right? So if I mentioned earlier, first get a budget and then afterwards fit the community to the budget, if you have both 75% financing as well as a larger down payment, all of a sudden you're going to find yourself able to afford a much more expensive neighborhood. Sometimes you don't want to just pay, more money just for the sake of it, but very often it is what people want. So it is important to make sure that your timing's on point, to make sure that you're structuring the purchase if you do purchase ahead of time, which is a great idea to get your foot in the door because prices keep going up. And so you can do that by buying on paper. And I really would reach out to Olim Advisors about finding the right structure there.
Great, thank you. For Harold and for Eileen, can you talk about or give advice about when you should start planning your Aliyah? How far in advance would you recommend that people really kind of switch from just thinking about it to actually planning it?
Okay, so we started thinking about it about 10 years ago, but it never really came to reality. Really, it was about a year before that we, and that's a really quick timeline. So I was here in November, right after the October the 7th. Then Carol and I came on a pilot trip. We kind of decided over the winter. We came on a pilot trip around Pesach. And then we had everything ready to go just about by the high holidays, but we were just waiting for our last paperwork from Nefesh for Nefesh. So that took about 6 months, and that was really smooth. So I'd say at least a year.
Eileen, what do you think?
So I laughed because I thought I was going to make Aliyah after university many years ago, but I got lost in America. From the time that I contacted Olim Advisors and started Nefesh B'Nefesh application, it took approximately a year. There were some stops and starts. My first pilot trip was supposed to be in April, but then the Iranian missiles were coming in when I got off the plane in New York, trying to get on a plane. So there were some delays, but I would say overall, it all worked out for the best. I'm in a position where I had a ranch in Texas with horses and animals. So to try to purchase before I got here or right away is complicated. I'm closing on that ranch on the 5th of August. So I'm in a renting position right now, but it's all a process. And I would say about a year. I wanted it faster, but it all worked out as it was supposed to. So
Great, thank you. There's a question
Well,
I get a lot of times. Sorry, go
Rafi,
ahead.
I want to give you a little different perspective because I know both myself and many of the people in my community, the planning process actually started 15, 20 years before they made Aliyah. And that planning process actually started with talking to their family about Israel, always bringing up Israel like on Shabbos discussion. So Israel wasn't a foreign country, really. It was something that they knew they were going to eventually go to at some point in time. And buying a house 15 years before I actually made Aliyah also encouraged me to do planning ahead of time. So my perspective is planning starts now. You're not going to buy a house now, but you start the planning process, and it gives you really the time to do the right planning and make the appropriate decisions, such that when you're ready to pull that trigger, you have all the information and you have your family behind you supporting you in that decision.
Great, thank you. We get a lot of questions from people who want to bring pets with them in the process. Karen, Artie, am I correct? Did you make Aliyah with a pet?
Yes, we came with our Labrador Retriever.
And can you
she
talk a little bit about
did.
what you did, or if you worked with another companies that help people, or did you handle it yourself?
We did get help because we felt like the timelines and the requirements for forms was very strict, and we wanted to make sure we followed that. So we did get help. And we also, another thing we did is planning ahead. We made sure that, like, the kennel that she was going to be traveling in, because she's so large, that we got that ahead of time and we started practicing with her and so forth. So we not only had the forms and working with the vets to get her proper shots in the proper timeline, and paperwork has to go back and forth between the US and Israel. So I think getting help, reading the guidelines on Nefesh B'Nefesh, on El and doing all that planning ahead really helped for a very smooth transition for her.
Great, thank you so much. There's a couple questions about work, about employment in Israel and making Aliyah and keeping a business in the States or wherever you're coming from. And so I want to address it in a few ways. First of all, there are many people that make Aliyah and go back and forth. You know, people used to, in essence, buy a one-way ticket and come to Israel and they stayed put and they didn't go back and forth. And now we're seeing this. We saw it during COVID and definitely now people are going back and forth. And it's something that, whether it's for family, for smachot, for business, it's something that is definitely doable and a lot of people do it. And so if that's one of your considerations, if you have the luxury of working or having a business or working for a company and you can move to Israel and work remotely, there's a number of benefits of doing that. The main one, of course, is financial. Most often, if you're working for a company from abroad, you're gonna get paid more money. So if you have that option, if the company's willing to let you work remotely from Israel, then it definitely is a plus, not a minus, and that's something that a lot of people are doing these days. The other thing is people who want to kind of reinvent themselves or maybe start a different career, and they ask me for advice about job searching. And so there's a few things I tell them. First of all, you can do a lot of the legwork, a lot of the research before you make Aliyah. So you can look at different industries and try and figure out where do you want to work, if it's a completely different industry or if it's in your current industry. And then once you figure that out, or once you identify a few industries, look at the companies, at the players, the ones that are getting news, PR, the ones that are raising money, the ones that are doing well, and try and identify certain companies that you think you may want to work for, and then reach out to people and just start networking. In my experience, most companies won't hire you before you make Aliyah. They want to make sure that you're here. But you can do a lot of that research, a lot of the networking beforehand, and kind of lay the ground for those job interviews once you get to Israel. And I think you'll find that that really will shorten the job search process and also open your eyes to new opportunities that you wouldn't have considered. There's also a great organization called Gvahim, which is based in Israel. It's a nonprofit organization that's been around for about 20 years. And they have a tremendous amount of resources, from mentors to helping you rewrite your resume to introducing you to companies. And so, like I mentioned before, it's definitely something that you want to look to. You want to look for people to help you, to connect you. And I think you'll find a lot of success by doing that when you start looking for a job. There's a question here, Avram, about buying a property before you make Aliyah. So if you can just briefly talk about the buying a property before you make Aliyah and then getting your property tax or the purchase tax back.
Okay, so I don't know if the question is only about the aspect of the tax, but I would just say in one sentence that we helped many people. We helped and we are helping for people to buy property while they are abroad. We even have a lot of clients that when they bought the property, they even never came physically to the property. It means that the realtor send them the whole 3D or video of the place, and they understand exactly very, very carefully what they're going to buy, and they bought it. So this is not a barrier for that. We can definitely buy this while we're living there. And about the tax, again, I don't want to go too much deeply because it's like 20 minutes of explanation. But if you're buying and you're still in the US, in the UK, wherever you are, and you after the do Aliyah, so you have a specific period of time that you can come and do the Aliyah and get the money back. Also, this we did help to many people. It depends. Sometimes it is 1 year that you have to come. Sometimes you have more. So every case is a bit different, depending on the situation of the apartment and the situation of the buyer. So I don't want to go more complex than that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lara, I'd like for you to just share briefly just a little bit of recommendations for different communities, because you really have a wealth of information and knowledge with different communities for families who are coming, say with young kids. Are there maybe 4 or 5 communities that you would recommend? Of course, it depends on the circumstances, what they're looking for, but maybe recommend 3 or 4 communities for families that are coming with kids, and then a few communities for people who are in that semi-retired, retired age.
Wow. Okay, so we have the big Anglo hubs, the Jerusalem, Modi'in, Ra'anana, Efrat and Gush Etzion area, Netanya, Ramat Bet Shemesh. Those are the big hubs. Today, I actually spoke to one of our clients who's in Harish. They came here semi-retired and they are beyond happy. And she was just talking to me about that. Karmigat is another community that's just growing and growing. I saw there was a question of someone asking about communities that have English speakers and French. So those typically, there's many families in Jerusalem, in Ra'anana, in Netanya, in Ashdod. And then there's really, we speak to people all the time, and we have families that just moved now into Ma'ale Adumim and are so happy. Families moving to Carmiel, Nahariya, Zichron Yaakov. So really, I'm looking around at the panel here, and everyone is. It's not just those. And I think today, with more and more people thinking about it and planning, and whether it's not even just making Aliyah, but thinking to buy. So we're looking at projects of places like Chulon and Bat Yam and Hedera that are not necessarily those top for Aliyah. So again, it depends. It depends on a person, the family, what their needs are, what they're looking for, what their budget is, obviously. Are they making Aliyah? Are they looking to buy? But we really get to understand the people and see what they're looking for and then try to match for them, options that would make sense for them. And yeah, it's fun. I love it. So reach out and we'll talk to you and see what makes sense. I
Great.
think a
Thank you.
community is so important. I don't know, Harold, Eileen, Artie, and Karen, you can all talk about it. It's makes such a difference, where you live, what's next to you, what's around you, what's going to, fill up your day and make you feel like you've made the greatest decision. I think that's one of the biggest things. I think a home is an amazing part of it, but really the community and everything around you. You're looking for a beach, or you're looking for a place for, at the time, Eileen, you're looking for the animals, or you wanted a certain, area, specific openness. And Harold, you guys wanted a specific community. I think it's just, there's so much to think about. But I think once you really narrow it down more, hopefully that makes your aliyah or your purchase that much more successful.
Great, thank you. Couple more questions that I just want to take, and while we have a couple minutes. One is about senior living facilities, and there are a lot of options. The models here are very different from the States, but Laura was talking about community. These are self-contained communities. There's one in Modi'in, for example, that I know people living there, and then everything's in this complex. They have classes and shiurim, and there's a restaurant, and they can do exercise and yoga and things like that. And so there are a number of these centers that are really very high end and really suit the needs of many people. And we actually work with a company that in essence is like a one-stop shop for seniors. They don't just help people find accommodations, they also help them if they need aids, if they need medical equipment, so on and so forth. So if you or your parents or people that you know need help when it comes to these types of issues, definitely reach out to us and we'd be happy to introduce you. And one other thing that I want to mention is just when it comes to real estate, as we've talked about and it's come up in a number of questions, real estate is expensive and it's just the reality of Israel. Having said that, we have recently partnered with a real estate group that have been able um, to get discounts for our audience, and we're talking about significant discounts in projects throughout the country. It could be, 100,000, 200,000, maybe even more shekel that you can save by taking advantage of this partnership. So I don't want to go into all the details now because there's a number of projects and details, but if you are looking to buy, especially if you're looking to buy on paper, so you're looking to buy something that won't be ready for another 2, 3, 4 years, then there's some really interesting opportunities, buying opportunities, whether it's to move into and live or to invest. I think just looking at the clock, I think that we've run out of time, but I just want to thank everyone for joining to the panel. I really want to thank you for your time, and to everyone who has joined us tonight. I know that we weren't able to get to a lot of the questions, but we definitely want to help you and we want to guide you. And I want to again encourage you to reach out to us. We have a lot of free resources, a lot of WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups that you can join and you can ask questions. So please feel free to take that next step, reach out to us and let us help you, let us guide you, and let us hopefully realize your dream of buying a home in Israel and making Aliyah. So thank you, everyone. Have a Shavua Tov, a good night, be well, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.